I was in a mall and I was walking around with my family. Most of the shops are closed, and it just felt like an error leaving, you know, like when you're a Sims character hanging out in malls because you don't really know where else to go. That's kind of what it felt like. I was looking through this window at this furniture, and it just felt very dystopian, you know, kind of like all the shops are closed, and I knew nobody was really going to buy that furniture at the whole price. They should just drop the price. That's actually what I was thinking about. And then I was also thinking about how horrible the song that was playing. It's a horrible 80s song that I've heard a million times, and that I would pay somebody to never hear again. And the last few verses of the song, all of a sudden, I don't know if you ever had this nostalgic moment where you smell a food that you haven't had in years and it kind of brings back a memory, or a perfume brings back a nostalgia that you've never or haven't smelt for years, or like a smell that is so new. It's kind of like, whoa, what is that? And it's like bringing back memories you didn't know that you actually had, or a song. The thing is, I was just thinking, I don't like this song, and all of a sudden the last part of that song with that dystopian vibe just kind of fell upon me, you know, like a wink, an elbow nudge, and it was to not look back. If you leave, don't look back. And it's a little bit like Lot's wife. Remember, she looked back and she became a pillar of salt. When you are ascending in a plane and the world is falling away, it becomes smaller as you ascend. So all of this will start to feel small, and the world has to fall away in order for there to be an ascension, for you to ascend. So that's kind of what happened. It kind of became like, because I was kind of looking around going, this is kind of sad. Like I'm a Sims character just hanging around, like haunting. I am the ghost of a mall now, because it's an era that's passed. It's gone. It's over. And even though this one was actually quite populated, but this moment reminded me, like, this moment is passing and it's happening. It's like I became very present in that moment. Things got kind of surreal for a second, and I got a little wink and a nudge, and that music got really, 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 really loud, and I could hear the bass of the song that was actually a whisper before, and I couldn't even stand the whisper of it. I couldn't, because I was like, oh my gosh, I really don't like this song. It was almost like I could feel it in the center of my chest. If you get to leave, don't look back. But it was a wink and a nudge. You know, people get so stuck on the rapture. The spiritual rapture is really a lot more important. In order to be fully comfortable with separating from this world and expecting to physically leave, you kind of got to spiritually do it first. You got to spiritually look around and say, this does have to pass away first. I am totally comfortable with whatever has to happen in order to bring the kingdom here. The world has to fall away while you do that. The world has to become smaller. The world has to become anthills. Because if you're in the world, then all the skyscrapers are above your head and you can't see the tops of them. But if you're leaving, those skyscrapers look like anthills. And it spiritually happened to me at that moment, where I just got this dystopian vibe that kind of started to suffocate me. But then this beautiful nostalgia, this beautiful good feeling came over, and I felt my chest vibrating with the song, and this words that were not words I've ever heard before, even though I've heard the song a million times, vibrating in my chest, and my spirit lifting up and saying, if you leave, don't look back. Because I was looking back right then and there. I was doing it right there. And it was like, why are you looking back at something passing away? When it's passed away, when it's gone, do not look back. Start now. I didn't want to do the video because it's private. But I could just feel in the spirit of, like, that people, I think, are maybe in a bit of despair. And the reason why I get emotional about it is because you have to leave this world first spiritually. You have to part and separate yourself, and it might be like wool separating from a thorn bush. You know, wet wool, when you pull it out of a thorn bush, it might be kind of painful. It's where he puts out a fleece. He's asking God, hey, I want you to confirm something. And he puts the fleece outside, and he says, if the fleece is, you know, got morning dew on it, that's a yes or a no, or confirming this is what you want. And I've also done this to God spiritually, where I said I kind of just want to do a video about this, and it was kind of like, no, somebody needs to hear that this is passing away, and you're going to have to get real comfortable with that, because that might mean you're stuck in this world. It might mean you might become bitter. It might mean that you're going to become a pillar of salt, because you're looking back and loving something, this world, more than the kingdom to come. And that separation has to happen in us first. But this Bible story was, when he goes out in the morning, he wrings out the fleece, and a bowl full of water is created. Now, when I heard this, because I was listening to the Bible app, it reminded me that all of our basic needs are met. Like, even when things, like, I wake up in the morning and I really do check to see if the sun rises, because I'm just in a different reality, I guess. I do doubt whether or not the sun will rise because of that time. And so I do a double check. Did the sun rise? I rose. Did the sun rise? And then your basic needs are met by God, because it reminds me a lot of manna, to have the fleece on the ground collecting water, and to wring out the fleece, and to have a bowl of water, So that's what manna is kind of like, where it was just something physical on the ground. I mean, there's a lot of things, like people can eat trees. You have to know which tree, though. And it just so what happens, we have all the scrolls open when it comes to the internet. We can know what we can eat around us. You can eat acorns. You can eat grasses that are not treated. There's so many things that people are absolutely surviving off of, including wringing out a fleece so you can get some water. It's just the same old habits, just replaced, because you have to work anyway. So if it's not at making your own water filters, or, which is easy, you do it with soil, you do it with sand. And you could take any type of water around you and filter it. It's just replacing old habits. I remember buying bread that was as much as some of the other things we were buying, an equal price. I mean, things that are actually manufactured were as sometimes cheaper than bread. And I just got this moment where I was like, oh, I should just make my own bread. Like, I can make tons of bread for, like, significantly cheaper. I'm getting the old thing that I've always wanted, just doing something different. And if you think about it like that, instead of the convenience, instead of I don't know, it's just like if you throw away a green onion, the tip of a green onion, you can grow 7 green onions in that one tip. You're throwing away 7 green onions. We've been very wasteful. So, and we have grandparents who survived the Great Depression. I've been thanking God for that, because there are just habits that my grandmother always talked about. Like, she used to make dresses out of potato sacks. That's what they were made of. They're made out of a sackcloth. And so it's kind of interesting that when people go into these sad cycles or low cycles or depression, as a society, they do end up wearing things like sackcloth, because that's kind of how clothing kind of comes to be, out of like potato sackcloth or whatever they're finding. And there's death usually around that time because of starvation and things. But this world has to pass away, and you can see what our society is doing. You can see why we can't have convenience for very long, why we can't have comfort for too long, because it creates evil people, an evil society. That's why. It proves God right over and over and over and over again. We're given enough freedom, and we take that freedom and we use it against him and saying, we don't need you, we are rich, we are not poor, we are always full, we don't need you to fill us anymore. And then we have to somehow think we could get rid of God. But it's just God showing that his prophecy of our heart and our spirit and what he's always said about us is true. This is the Lord of Christ is King forever. May God be with you.